Motion approved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. All
Mayor, I
opposed?
abstained from the vote, please. I was absent.
Okay, we have one abstention and the motion passes. Next is the consent agenda.
Mayor, I wanted to ask about item I on here, the concession stand agreement. So it's not
Yes.
necessarily a question about that, but could we also have our parks director look at expanding on that possibly, than just having one vendor? Or I know that contract doesn't have any kind of exclusivity agreement or anything like that.
Yeah, and I think our director is here. I saw him somewhere, and that question has come up, Director, because actually at the last group of soccer games on Saturday, there was no vendor there.
Okay.
And we're kind of want to make sure we're able to have a vendor at all the games as they come. So it might, what do y'all think about maybe, since this one doesn't say exclusive, we'll still approve it, but maybe have the Parks Director look to maybe finding us a backup or another one. And it could be that we have two at some games, so.
Yes, sir.
Does that answer your question? Is
Yes,
that
sir.
what you want to get to, Alderman Piper?
Yep.
Okay, yeah, if you just look into that, we'd appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right.
Thanks.
Are there any other questions, or can I have a motion on the consent agenda?
Motion to approve.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. All opposed, no. That motion passes. Next, can I have a motion on the personnel docket?
Motion approved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That motion passes. Item 9, as y'all know, our planning director has left us, and we, as a team, have convinced Mr. Cardosi to come work for us. So could I have a motion to hire Austin Cardosi as the director of planning at the pay rate of $90,000?
Motion to approve.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That motion passes. Austin, welcome to the team.
Glad to be here. Thank you.
Item 10 is the donation docket.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The motion passes. The next is to authorize Amy Claire Holder and Julie Gates as signers for the First Security bank accounts.
Motion to approve.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That motion passes. Next is a request from Mary Wims with Special Olympics for a donation. Is Mary Wims here? Yes.
Good evening, how are y'all doing?
Good, how are you?
I'm doing fine. I'm Mary Williams with Special Olympics here in DeSoto County. We have come out tonight to ask for a donation to help support our organization. We've been closed ever since COVID started, and we plan on opening back up in August. But as anything else has taken a toll on us, our donations have not been coming in like they normally have. And so we were looking for a donation, especially because we've got 10 athletes from DeSoto County that will be attending the 2022 USA Special Olympic Games that will be held in Orlando, Florida in June. So we're trying to come up with the fee that we have to pay for them to go, and just everything that goes along with it. And like I said, we got 10 that's going. This is Teddy, who'll be going for powerlifting. This is Trey, he goes for powerlifting. We have 2 more powerlifters, 2 track and field, 2 flag football, 2 swimmers that'll all be going and participating. Teddy has gone in 2014 to New Jersey and got first place in the United States in his weight class for powerlifting.
Wow.
So that's what we come out. We just reached out to all the cities. We've got stuff from Horn Lake, we've got stuff from Olive Branch. South Haven told us no, they wouldn't let us come talk to them, and then we're coming to y'all. We're asking for about $1,000 That's what Ollie Branch gave. One Lake gave 3,000. And of course, South Haven gave none. They don't plan on doing anything. We've came at the wrong time for them. And I'm sure everybody's budgets have already been done. We wasn't budgeted in, but we wasn't expecting to have this hard of a time to raise money
Okay.
for our athletes.
Mayor, what line item do we usually give our donations from?
There's one in there called donations out of the general fund, and then we have another line item, and I don't have the budget in front of me, but we have another line item in the tourism account where we give donations like this. And we put an amount of money in there that's not all allocated. At this moment, I don't know how much is unallocated, but I think we would be safe at somewhere between 500 and 1,000.
The balance is 500 to 1,000.
I think we'd be safe with that. I don't know what that balance is, but we put quite a bit in there. We haven't given a lot of it this year. We always leave a pad in there for unexpected things of this nature. The larger ones that come to us ahead of time, we have those budgeted in.
I'd like to make a motion that we donate $1,000 if you think that'll fit the budget, and I'm welcome to a motion for that number to be higher. If there's anyone that feels like we can afford to do that.
I'll second it.
There's a motion and a second for $1,000 to Special Olympics. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That motion passes.
All right, I would just need to get a hold to whoever does your logo for the city. Since you
Okay.
did $1,000, your logo will go on our travel day t-shirts.
Great.
So
Good.
I can just be
Yeah.
hooked up with whoever about that, and then.
So we have the city clerk and Gia work
Okay.
with you on that.
All right, thank you.
All right, stay in touch with us.
Uh-huh.
Thank you, and good luck to you guys.
Thank you.
Next is item 13, the approval of the resolution for the raise grant for equitable mobility improvements through multi-use pathways and bike lanes. Since you came all this way, you want to get up and speak very briefly and about the need for the resolution as we move forward?
Right. We are putting together the raise grant application for multi-use pathways throughout the city. It basically came out of the study, the mobility study we did. And so you need a resolution. They're due on the 14th, so we're trying to get everything in. We don't want to be the last. Everybody and their mama will be applying, but just a little overview of the program. There's approximately $2.2 billion available, which is the highest it's ever been. It's about 2.5 times what it was last year. It was $1 billion last year. So anyway, we're very, we had conversations with our delegation in Washington. We had a conversation with USDOT about our application, and so we do feel good about it. We need to get with MDOT soon, which we will, to get their concurrence. And so it's, we're, no one really ever gets it their first try, so we feel like we're in a good position. There's more money. We fit the requirements of the merit criteria very well. So this resolution we updated our cost estimates, and we wanted to make sure that the resolution had the appropriate cost in there, and so that's why it's here in front of you today. I apologize for not knowing that exact amount of the cost estimate. Of course, it went up from last year just to view everything else in the world has gone up since last year.
As we know, as we'll see later in our budget, on our agenda, everything's going up.
So, but anyway, the purpose of this is to have a resolution in the application that you're willing to put up the match, if the project is awarded, and that you would administer the project.
And just as a little bit of background, y'all approved us to apply again and to hire the other company, not Neil Schaefer. Neil Schaefer is working pro bono on this one for us. We hired the other company that's actually doing the writing of the grant, the professional grant writers.
Right.
And David had scheduled,
David
had scheduled some meetings where he and I did meetings with all 3 of our legislative delegations and had really good talks with them in DC. So we're lobbying it, and we're getting letters of support.
Congressman Kelly's staff are from the district, from DC came, and we did we were gone with Gia, so their staff was actually visited the sites and looked at it. We feel, and they certainly know about our project, which is good.
And there is this is up to this amount of money, like they could have, in theory, they could say, well, you're not gonna get this whole amount, you can get you can, or is that very unlikely to happen?
You just asked me a lot of questions there.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, to answer your question, yes, they can award a portion of it. So we kind of combat that. We have various different projects throughout the city, and so we priced each one of those. So hopefully, they would randomly just take a project off the list, off of what we're asking for, if something like that happens. Generally, what they do, though, is it's not where they're really trying to give more awards or whatever, that type of thing, where they're trying to give out money to everybody. It's usually something, the reason it's different, there would be something made a decision they did more fun. Like we've got some money for a project in another place, Mississippi, and they took out, we had water sewer relocations, and they took that out. They tell us that one of something we couldn't ask for money,
But they took it out. So
it
it would be something like that they would take out. So, but anyway, we're trying to give them all different ways that they can award something.
As a reminder, this is over 3 or 4 years or 5 years?
It's 5 years.
5.
Or actually, is it 5 or 7?
7, actually.
7, yeah.
7 years, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we have 3 years to obligate it and 7 years to build it.
Okay.
So could I have a motion to approve the resolution?
I'll make a motion to approve it.
Second.
The motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. That motion passes. Thank you, David. We'll get you back up here for the next one. Item 14 is to authorize the surplus old non-functioning water meters that have zero value, and they're listed in your packet.
Motion to approve.
Second.
It's a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. That motion passes. Item 15 is to authorize to surplus old computer equipment with zero value in the planning department.
Motion to approve.
Second.
It's a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. That motion passes. Next is to surplus old computer equipment with zero value in the Parks Department.
Motion to approve.
Second.
There's a motion and a second.
We said exactly the same.
All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. That motion passes. Next is to authorize Public Works to purchase the used Vermeer hydro excavator from Wilkins Equipment in Nesbit for $39,500 as the lowest quote. Would you like to come up here, Lee, and talk about it just for a second? Excuse me. Kind of just show the benefit of what it'll do for us and
Sure.
time savings.
With this piece of equipment, normally when we fix water leaks and repair water leaks right now, we use an excavator. We have to haul it and locate. We have to dig around other utilities, gas lines, phone lines, cable lines, stuff like that. This would eliminate any damage that a piece of equipment would cause. It basically uses high pressure water, and it basically turns the dirt into mud, and then a vacuum sucks it out, and it makes a nice clean hole. We can make our repairs and then fill it up with sand afterwards. And you know, and also in an emergency situation, we can also hydro excavate without a locate. So it works pretty efficiently. We've needed one for quite some time, but the piece of equipment that we, of course, wanted was about $1 million. It was a sewer combo truck. It would suck out manholes and also do hydro excavating. This one came up for sale about a month or so back. Had mechanics go all through it. They replaced the water pump on it and a few other key components that are going to ensure that it's going to be a good piece of equipment. And then to purchase this, we'll be using funds from when we sold the equipment earlier in the year at Crenshaw Auction Company. Wouldn't be spending all that money, we'll be spending a good portion of it. And I'd be happy to answer any questions. The other quote that you have in front of you is from another equipment sales. I believe it was in Oklahoma or somewhere like that. I have it here.
Does anybody have any more questions? If not, can we have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lee.
Hey, Lee, I just want to say, too, I know y'all are out first thing this morning getting after it, and we appreciate y'all.
Absolutely. Agree, doing a great job.
I know that's y'all's job, but, man, I know that was an early call, and that was a big,
It was.
big
We started
issue.
about 2:30 and we got done about 2 this afternoon. So.
Well, thanks for not texting me until 4:30. Item 18 is to authorize to accept the lowest and best quote for Mid-South Septic to camera and identify sewer infiltration in Edgewood subdivision due to homes getting flooded with sewer at a cost of $26,950. I know some of you are very familiar. We have had insurance claims from homes that when it rains very heavily, it backs up into their sewer. So obviously, we have rainwater getting in the sewer system somewhere. We cannot find it, so we're calling in professionals to help us find it. Those residents certainly don't deserve to have their houses flooded when it rains, and this is expensive, but I think it's something that we just have to do to get it solved.
It's definitely a good starting place also.
Yeah.
This is gonna cover about basically 11,000 foot of sewer pipe. They're gonna camera it, they're gonna find any infiltration, any cracks, any holes. They'll give it to us on a thumb drive, video thumb drive. We can review it. They'll also identify it while they're there. They'll call us out. We'll say, hey, you know, we have a leak here, we have a manhole that's too low, we have something in a creek that's broken, whatever it may be. And it'll definitely be a good starting point to resolving those issues in Edgewood.
On one of these letters, it has Edgewater on it. Just change that to Edgewood, so there's no confusion on where this is going to be
We can do that.
utilized first.
Sure.
Lee, I believe your budget is healthy enough to absorb this, is it not?
Yes, sir, it
So
is.
you- Okay,
It is. We may have to do some amendments towards the end, but as it stands right now, yes, sir, we can.
good.
I mean, we don't have an option.
Right, we really don't.
We don't. I mean, we've had 2 homes flooded over there with sewage.
And every time it rains now, we have to go over there
They
and watch them closely
Right.
and use manpower where it could be used otherwhere.
Yeah, and they're
places.
having to keep their overflow valves opened on their 2 homes because every time it flash flood rains, any large amount like we've had several times, their toilets start gurgling and everything starts backing up into their tubs and everything. So they're having to keep them open just every single day.
This is one of those issues that'll only get worse, not better. I mean, so we,
Right.
like you said, Beth, we really don't have any options here.
No,
other than
because it's
to
going to cost the city a
approve
lot
this.
more if we don't do something, so.
Under normal circumstances, normal rain conditions, you know, we're still getting the infiltration, but the sewer lift stations will handle it. But with the rain that we've been having lately, with the flash floods and the 2 to 3 inches of rain, 4 inches of rain, it just can't keep up. And this is not a, you know, I want to be clear on this. This is not a guaranteed fix. This is a starting point to finding infiltration. And not only is it going to help the residents of the subdivision, but it also is going to hopefully reduce our true-up charges at the end of the year with the crew that we 9 times out of 10 always have to pay. So, and that's a substantial amount.
Yeah, and just so everybody's clear, every time rainwater gets in the sewer system, we are paying DeCrua to treat that rainwater. So any rainwater we can keep out of the sewer system saves us in the long run. Can I have a motion on that item?
Motion to approve.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That motion passes. The next item is number 19, to approval to accept the EWP Nrcs grant for Creekside and Fork Creek project and for the mayor to sign. This is going to be another project to kind of continue the work that was done under the last administration, where we're fixing ditches and making them more stable and helping with stormwater issues. David, would you come talk about the parameters of that and how, and kind of explain to this board, we haven't accepted one of these since
Sure.
we've been seated, kind of how the process works, just very briefly.
Sure. This is a grant from the USDA, NRCS, which is the Natural Resource and Conservation Service. It used to be the old Soil Conservation Service.
but they're 75%, 25% grant. So they're basically, you have to have a event, kind of like we had this morning. You have a big, it has to be associated with a rain event. But we take the NRCS people, when we get notification of a extremely erodible area that has been caused by a flood event. And, you know, we basically ask them to declare things a project. So it's not something that you, I mean, it's not it's a reactivatory type grant, if that makes sense. In other words, you can't really get them to go do something before something happens bad. So, but anyway, there are 2 sites that have been identified for this funding. One is on Fort Creek, and one is over by the Magnolia Hills Cove Daycare behind it. And there's some photographs, I think, in your packet. But so anyway, NRCS has granted these projects, and it's a grant agreement. You basically are responsible for 25%, so it's, I think total together, each one of them are around $250,000. So, you know, you would be responsible, you know, they put up about 200,000, and then, you know, you would put up 50,000 or so for your match.
So this is also getting that creek right behind the daycare, just north of the daycare on Mackingville?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good.
So there are 2 sites that they're looking at. Yes, sir.
You have a map or of what these projects
Yeah,
look like we can put out, maybe?
They're not very big. You know, I didn't know what sort of information's in your packet.
I don't think we have the map. But if you could, besides just showing it to the board, if you happen to have it with you, but just email it to me so we can put it out to the public
Sure.
on our website.
That's one side. Here's the other side. We'll definitely do that. But they're just a little short, and usually there has to be a structure involved or something that is a potential hazard that could, you know, be lost. One of these is the manhole situation that's eroding away, which goes back to your discussion that you just said, you know, so this is where rainwater gets in to that. But we'll send you this packet, and y'all can, you know, take a look at it. But to be honest with you, there's not a whole lot of money in this program, so we're very fortunate to be awarded one of these projects. So,
Good.
Matter of fact, we work for a lot of different places, and I think this is the second one we've had in a couple of years. So,
We need it for sure.
yeah, be very grateful.
Are there any other questions for
Don't
Mr.
tell your
Bowman?
friends.
If not, can I have a motion?
Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve, to accept the NRCS grant for Creekside and Fort Creek project,
Second.
for you to sign it.
It's a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. That motion passes. Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Joe Frank is up next with item 20. We had tabled the paving bid because the contractor had asked us to table it, and I think Joe has good news for us tonight.
Okay. You know, we're really supposed to come back the next meeting after tabling this for a month. And then I've talked to the contractor a couple of times, and he thought maybe things were going to work out for him after the 1st of April. And I think he's been assured that he can buy the asphalt for the amount that he bid. So I think he wants to get the city to accept his bid and sign a contract.
And this was budgeted, and this came in within the budgeted amount.
And you have a list in your packet of the streets.
Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve the bid of American Service LLC for the paving and milling of street projects.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. That motion passes.
Do you know when he'll start on this?
It takes about 30 days to sign a contract, get his bonds.
Okay. Tell him to get started as quickly as he can.
Absolutely. We want him to.
Okay. Thanks. Item 21 is to discuss the approval of a bid for the Green Tea Road and Mackingville infrastructure improvements, overlay and shoulder widening project in association with the AWG Memorandum of Understanding. Mr. Foster, would you come up and talk about those bids?
Y'all have bid tabs in your packet?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
As you all know, we opened bids for the Green Tea Road widening project May 25th. We ended up getting 2 bids, which we were quite disappointed in that. I think we had 14 sets of plans out, so we thought we was going to get a good turnout. We knew that the bids were going to come in higher than what we had projected when we did the loans back in, I want to say, middle to end of 2020. So we knew they were going to be higher, and I believe that loan amount was estimated at a little over $1 million. Mayor, do you have that amount? I didn't
think
write
it
that
was
down.
about 1.1 million is what
Yeah,
Joe
just a
Frank
little
told
bit
me.
more. Well, bids came in quite a bit higher than that. Our low bid from Phillips Contracting, who's doing the access road to the AWG plant now, came in at 2.401, 225.50. $2,401,225.50, and so that was obviously quite a bit higher than what we were anticipating. We anticipated it coming in between 1.5 and 1.8. We knew it's going to be quite a bit higher. Just out of curiosity, I went back and looked at the bid tab for the Highway 51 widening job that the county did. They opened bids end of December. And just using the asphalt numbers from that bid, it would have reduced our bid by almost 35%. Asphalt prices went up 50% on our bid. Binder went up 150%. Shoulder rock went up 90%. And the top lift of shoulder rock went up 25%. So in our bid, 80% of the total bid on this project was tied up in our paving section, maintenance of traffic, and our mobilization. So, I mean, our whole bid is in those like 6 items. So,
Is there anything in the scope of work that you think is extra or could be cut back on, or is it all needed to make the project work?
It's all needed. Like I say, 80% of the bid was paving. If you take the paving plus the striping, after you do the paving, that's most of the project. The rest of the stuff is minor erosion control stuff, a head wall, a little bit of guardrail, but it's all paving and striping.
Okay.
There's really no chance to do any value engineering on this project.
Do you remember in the MOU when we had promised AWG this would be finished?
September 30th, I believe.
Okay.
When we were looking at this, you know, we waited to bid it after the Mackingville Road project was finished, the interchange project was finished, and then with all the COVID stuff, and we had a little extra time, we was trying to let that bubble kind of pass. You know, obviously it didn't pass, and it's gotten a lot worse.
Yeah.
Since then. It's just a volatile market right now.
Foster, do you think maybe 6 months from now this would be any cheaper, or?
No, I really don't. If there was any opportunities to value engineer any of this out of the project, you know, we may could rebid, but holding it and rebidding the same stuff right now, I don't think would get us anything, because the amount of work that's going to be hitting the market is just going to increase right now.
If the board accepts this low bid, when do you think the work would start and probably be finished?
Our contract is set up to be finished by the end of July. The contractor wants to get started because we've got it's not a tight time frame. It's not a huge project, but he's wanting to get started so we can get finished.
Okay, so we need to
July
pay for it
30th.
in this budget year.
I'm sorry?
We would need to pay for it in this budget year.
Correct.
And just for the board's information, I spoke with Daryl at the North Delta Planning Development District. He's the one that's overseeing the loan that we got for the AWG stuff. It's about 3.2 million. I asked him about the possibility of raising the cap on that loan. He said most of these type loans are capped at 2.5 million, so we're already over. He didn't see any chance that we could expand that one past the 3.2. So if we approve this, we're going to be eating the extra bit of it ourselves and having to borrow the money or trying to find it in surplus, which there probably isn't that much surplus out there. So we would probably just be borrowing most of this extra overage.
Mayor, wasn't this project tied directly to the AWG project, and the commitment was made by the city to do this?
It was. It's in the
That's
memorandum of
what I thought.
understanding.
And based on that, our hands are kind of tied. We don't have much of a choice other than to approve it to meet the obligation that we've already made to the AWG project. Am I correct?
I don't know how binding that is legally, but yes, the city did promise to do it, so I think that's binding.
What would our overage be that we would have to possibly borrow?
Between 1.1 and 1.3 million, just depending on
That was
how
over the
other projects.
1.1 we were originally.
Yeah. Because in that loan, we're paying for the road that we built into the concrete road we built into AWG, and we're paying for the AWG sewer project and the green tea. Those were the three things in this loan.
Weren't we under budget on a couple of those items as well? Didn't
Joe,
we
didn't we
save
come
some
in a
money?
little under budget on the road? Even with the dirt, didn't we come in a little under budget on, you know how far under budget we're gonna be there?
Just 100,000.
Okay. And we're just about right on the sewer project, aren't we?
Just a little above, yes.
Just a little. So we may have 100,000.
You know, the water tank, we got a grant for yet.
Right.
When will we borrow this money? Will we borrow it now, or?
I think we would have to go ahead and borrow it very quickly since they'll be finished in July and they'll need payment as soon as they're done. And they may need some pay times in the middle of it. I'm not sure how that would.
There would be draws, intermittent draws, yeah.
And I did, when I talked to Daryl at the Planning Development District, he did say he is going to be looking at other avenues of money on our behalf, but I don't think we can count on that right now. So if we're voting to do this, we're going to be under the understanding that there's a really good chance we could just have to borrow it.
Is there any way we could go back to the county and AWG and say, hey, this thing came back $1 million over budget? Could you maybe?
Did we amend the MOU at this point? To change the deadline?
You know, the deadline might be something we could work on. I don't know that we could physically amend it, but I don't think they're going to be open by September 30th like they had talked about. They are behind schedule on their opening.
I mean, to me, I don't think it's wise for us to accept a bid not knowing where the funding sources are going to be and just saying we'll figure it out. You know, so I'd like for us to do that homework prior to accepting the bid, just so we know exactly where those revenue sources are going to be. If it's going to be borrowed, what's the rate? You know, all those things. What's the impact going to be for future budget years and that kind of thing.
Mike, how long are these bids good for? Could we wait till the next board meeting to let us gather some more data?
Yeah, we just opened it, I guess a week ago, this past Friday, so I think they're good for 45 days, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we have a little time.
Well, that'll give me a couple weeks to work with the Planning Development District and see if they can scramble on our behalf, talk about extending the amount of time to get it done, even though that might not be pertinent, because if we extend it out, we may just have a higher price later on. But we can start looking at what it would cost us to borrow the money, look very closely at the budget, see if we have any excess revenue coming in that we weren't expecting that we could shove that way. So, yeah, we'll gather some data and work with the board and give y'all some more information for the next meeting if y'all just want to table it for now.
When when the city made the agreement, we made the agreement on the basis of the amount of the loan that we were getting, right? And so I would think that this is a substantial difference in when we made the agreement.
Is
It's a
it
different climate.
possible to get a second cap loan for this type of infrastructure improvement?
I will ask Daryl that question. I do not know.
Because that's, y'all may not know, the interest on that was like 2%. It was really, really low. But the money can only be used for infrastructure improvements, so we could maybe look into that.
But you think if we do wait and bid it 6 months from now, it'll be higher than this?
I think so. I mean, there's just more and more work hitting right now. And like I say, we had, I think it was 14 sets of plans out, and I talked to the contractor on Mackingville, and he said there was a huge TDOT letting, and he had tied up all of his resources in that. If he got what he wanted to get, there's no way he could do this one, so.
You're saying if we'd have bid this out a year ago, it'd been 1.2, 1.1 probably?
I'm thinking we'd have gotten a lot better price on it, yeah.
But you only got back 2 bids, right?
2 bids, correct.
So it still opens us up for more possibilities.
I
When
think
we've
that
got
the
a little
longer
more.
we wait, the more tied up people are gonna get, because the federal ARPA money is spreading across the country and projects are happening
That's true,
in
too.
greater and greater numbers.
Well, that and the federal infrastructure money's starting to flow to DOTs, and there's a lot of money in the system right now. And like I say, you never know what's gonna happen. That's what I think would happen in 6 months. I mean, no one knows what's gonna happen to the economy in the next 6 months. It may go down some, but I just don't. With the amount of work going out right now, I don't think it's going to.
Okay. Would somebody like to make a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to table it till our April 19th meeting so we can do a little more due diligence on loan rates, terms, and have just a little more information before we commit to this large overage.
Okay. There's a motion on the table from Alderwoman Ross. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
There's a motion and a second to table it till April 19th. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That motion passes.
Thank you.
Right. Mike, we'll get together and try to, work together and see what we can come up with in the next week or two.
Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, item 22 is the Montclair drainage issue. Joe Frank has got some quotes on some drainage problems in one instance over there. There's a lot in that neighborhood, but this is one of them.
Okay. I guess we began to look at this problem last September. Involves 3 lots there in Montclair. They back up kind of on the north property line. I think Natalie's been out there a couple of times when it was dry and when it was raining. And one of the property owners is here tonight about it. We talked to the builder of the home, and he really wasn't interested in doing anything. Talked to the developer. He said he wasn't interested in doing anything, that he believed it was a way that things were graded out there that he wasn't involved in. So we've come up with a plan, and finally got 2 people that were willing to give me a price on it, and you can see the cost there. It involves working on 3 lots. The problem is that there's a good bit of water coming in from the subdivision to the north that gets into one of the yards really bad, and we've got to direct that water on down the back property line toward the drainage ditch that's out there. So
That water's coming off the street in the other subdivision, flowing through those yards into these 3.
that's right.
Okay.
And then we've got a pressure sewer line that's in that bank that's being washed out because of this. And what's involved, stabilizing the bank, regrading the back of 3 yards, have to resod that. And we've got to adjust a pipe that where the water drains into the main ditch that goes through subdivision.
Just so everybody kind of knows where it is, if you go into Montclair, as soon as you cross the little bridge there by the stack of mailboxes, it's the first 3 there on the right, which backs up to that subdivision where Sonny lived. Anybody have any questions for Joe Lauderdale?
Joe, what's your recommendation to accept this low bid?
Yes, sir.
Mayor, I'll make a motion to accept a low bid for the Montclair drainage issue.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That motion passes. Item 23 is the discussion of the paving contract for Old Highway 51. If y'all will remember, we approved to pave motor scooter, and we had said we were going to talk again about how much of 51, Old 51 to pave. So Joe is going to talk to us about that and see if we can make a decision so all that can get done.
Okay. I'm thinking we still have a contract. We had signed a contract with Lehman Roberts in October the 15th. I've talked to them twice. They say they are going to honor the contract at the price they gave us. And as the mayor said, we approved the contract in saying that we would definitely do Motor Scooter Drive and then come back and talk about Old 51 Highway there from Nesbitt Road up to 51.
And the portion of 51 there, it's that whole section of Old 51 through there. That, you said with the patching and the paving is just about 50,000, correct?
Yes. If we do the whole job, it's 204,000. And of course, we've been working on the drainage. We had a contract to do some drainage work up there. I think I've asked Lee to come up and help us do a little more drainage work. He said he would. So if you've been on Old 51, you can't hardly drive down it.
It's bad.
Trucks and everything just continuously tear it up, work on it. So.
There are quite a few businesses, private businesses up in that industrial cove. There are also just citizens that use that as a shortcut to get to 51 pretty regularly. And we have a lot of the county buildings up there. So there's a lot of traffic on that section of Old 51. And my recommendation would be to go ahead and pave it as well.
Your recommendation is what?
Is to go ahead and pave the 51 section as well, the old 51 section.
Well, we budgeted, what, 1.2 for everything that we
did.
kinda-
And then we've talked about some other stuff, and we were going to dip into that separate pot of money that we're adding to every year from the lottery funds.
Right.
And monies have been coming in to that fund.
We only budgeted 900,000, right? And we get to 1.2 with the lottery money, is that right?
That was what we were going to do. And then since then, there's been another $500,000 or so end up in that fund in revenues.
Well, it's just like Joe Frank said before, the longer we wait on this, the worse these get, and then it's more expensive to repair. So, I mean, we've talked about this one since last year.
What's the total
Before.
cost? You have the total cost?
Total cost?
204, wasn't it?
204.70. Yes, $204,070.
Any other questions or a motion?
Mayor, I have a question on that amount of money. Would we have to borrow that money?
No, sir, we have the funds
It's in
to
the,
do it.
I think it's on your list.
Yeah, it was on the list.
It's a carryover from last year into this list.
I'll make a motion to approve
Okay.
lowest bid, or the amount of $204,070, correct?
Is that the
Make a
correct number,
motion to
Joe?
approve.
Yes.
Okay, we have a motion?
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That motion passes. I think we've been trying to get this one done for about 10 years, hadn't we?
County promised us 10 years ago they would pay half of it, but
Right.
I think they forgot about that.
Item 24, moving on. The discussion to increase water tap fees for properties outside the city limits. Joe, would you like to talk about that and the need for it?
Okay.
We've been talking about this for a couple of years also. Out in the, outside the city limits, mostly, well, it's pretty much 100% water service from the old North Mississippi Water Company's franchised area. And you know, if you've driven out there, the east side of town, all the growth and all the people that have come to us about developing, ongoing developments, developments that are on the paper, being drawn up now. And we were trying to figure out, of course, we can't charge an impact fee like North Mississippi did. North Mississippi was able to charge an impact fee to each builder per lot on the front end. But we need some money out there to improve the water lines in the water plant because the growth is so heavy that what we have out there needs upgrading. And
What's the fee now?
sir,
What's the fee now?
it's the fee. I'm gonna have to ask Lee what we charge on the tap fee. Seven or 800?
The regular 3/4 inches is $835,
835.
and the 1 inch is $6.
So I think the proposal is for the ones outside the city limits, who are not paying property taxes to the city, that would be an additional $600 on those. So this would basically be on all the new houses being built outside the city limits on our water system. And it is not only legal in the state to do that, it is kind of usual and customary in most places that the customers outside the city limits either pay a higher water rate or higher tap fees or both.
Well, I mean, we were using our manpower to repair and maintain everything in the city. So, I mean, I think it makes sense.
Well, all the work they were out doing at 2:30 this morning was in the county.
In the
not city
county,
limits.
yes.
It was on one of these lines.
Yeah.
Right.
Servicing these subdivisions.
It costs us around $700 to make a tap. That's without boring under the road. That's just digging the water main up on the side of the road, making a tap, put the water meter in.
So when we bought, a few years ago, North Mississippi Water, was this something that we overlooked that just slipped through the cracks on us? And for that reason, we have not been charging the people out in the county this tap fee? Or are we charging it and we just want to get more money? And that's why we're increasing it, I'm assuming.
Okay. Because North Mississippi was able to charge a $500 impact fee on the front end for anybody out there, that's what helped them maintain their water plant and maintain their lines above the improvements that they got from the subdivision. So we know that so many people are, you know, what did we figure up? We've got about 12 subdivisions out there that want to develop, and we just need to make some improvements, and the improvements need to be made either at the water plant or on the off-site water lines that serve these subdivisions.
Just for comparison, I know personally that Belmont Water System, which is south of town, they charge a $1,000 tap fee and a $1,000 impact fee, so it's $2,000 to get a meter set on the Belmont Water System. So we would still be less than that.
Right.
And we're asking for 600?
600 on top of what we're already charging, so
Yeah.
1,430, something like that.
Yep.
And would that be for any home that has not been built yet, hadn't been?
Yeah, as soon as y'all
Like,
approve
at what-
it, the next person that comes in to pull a permit for a new home outside the city limits on our water system, they would start paying it. So it's just gonna be new construction, it's not for any existing houses. Or if for some reason somebody decided to add a second tap to their lot, but that's very rare. So it would mostly be absorbed by the builders putting up new houses outside the city limits. And then that would allow us to do a lot of the work we need to do to upgrade that water system instead of putting it on the backs of the city of Hernando taxpayers.
We know when the last time we raised our tap fees?
Gosh, it
Raised them, probably.
feels like we may have raised them around '07 or something. That's just my feeling on it. I know we raised them at some point a long time ago, but I don't know exactly which year.
Cost of pipes went up since 2007, I would think.
Yeah.
Is 600 enough?
Sir?
The question is 600 enough?
Well, it'd be nice if it was more, but I mean, that's,
I mean, that was my question as well. I mean, 12 neighborhoods, if it averages 100 homes, 1,200 homes times $600, $720,000, is that going to make a dent in?
yes, it's gonna help, sure.
We can always revisit it too.
Yeah, this board can change tap fees and rates at any time.
If we feel with the growth that we can't keep up with the maintenance, we can always revisit it.
This is not gonna be a surprise to them, because we've been talking to them for the last couple of years, telling them that we were gonna have to do something to get some more revenue.
And I'm not going to say that all of them, but I would say most of these developers outside the city limits need our water service, and they have been talked to about this, and most of them understand the need for it. And, you know, otherwise, we might get to the point we couldn't give them a will serve letter. We couldn't provide water for their new subdivisions, and they all understand that. We're not just trying to take money. We're just trying to provide the services without affecting the taxpayers in the city limits of Hernando.
Proposing going from 835 to 1435.
Yes,
Maybe even 1,500.
that would be easier. Somebody like to make a motion?
Well, what about the 1-inch pipe? If we're gonna do that,
What was the one
Yeah,
inch?
It was 16 something?
make it even.
Well, that, the
500?
1 inch, just, the cost of the 1 inch meter and tap is just, will cost you more. I mean, that just,
Quite a bit more.
just,
Lee,
we just add
how
our
much you said
cost
the
in.
1 inch was?
1,500, 2,500?
And we don't do a lot of 1-inchers. You know, most houses are 3/4, aren't they? Well, how many do you think, Lee?
In the county, there's, I'd say 85%, 90% of 1 inches.
No kidding. Okay. I was wrong.
If we're putting the tap in, we do it for a 1 inch, and we put a 3/4 by 1 setter on there, just in case it's not enough in the future, we don't have to dig that main back up, we can just change the setter out.
Would this also affect people inside the city limits, or just strictly for
It
outside?
would not, just outside the city limits.
I'll make a motion, to increase the water tap fees outside the city limits, 3/4 inch pipe, $1,500, 1 inch pipe to $2,500.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. That motion passes. Thank you, Joe. Next, item 25 is the discussion of medical marijuana policies in the city of Hernando. As a little background, the state legislature in February passed the Medical Cannabis Act, and the cities are automatically in unless they opt out. And some of us listened to an informational seminar put on by Troy Johnson with Butler Snow, and I think Nick Manley was one of the people who's the attorney for the city of South Haven, people who are very well versed on this, and they just said that it was probably a good idea for us just to all talk about it. We have options. The city could opt out of it and opt in at any other time. If you don't opt out, you're just in. If you wait that 90 days, then the city would be in, which means medical marijuana dispensaries could locate in the city in commercial zones. I think a question had come up. The reason we put it on here was, you know, what zones would it be in Hernando? And so as it stands, from the information we've gathered from the attorneys who seem to know the most about it, nothing's in stone. They just feel like this is the way it's heading. Right now, in this, let's just say the city of Hernando, we have C1, C2, C3, and C4. None of them say anything about medical marijuana dispensaries. So if we do nothing, a medical marijuana dispensary could locate in any of those commercial zones. So we have a map up there that shows where all our C zones are. They're the pinkish and orangish ones. They're all generally clustered together. And I think it's worth looking at the map and seeing if there's any of those zones we thought were not appropriate. I've looked at the map, and we don't have a whole lot of C1, C2, C3, and C4 zones. My personal opinion is, if we're going to do it, those dispensaries would probably be okay in any of those C zones. But we just needed to look at it and have a discussion and get some input and talk about it.
When there's some kind of regulation around how many feet from a daycare, a school, a church,
Right.
1,000 feet or something like that.
So that's written into the legislation,
Okay.
that it has to be a certain number of feet from a daycare or school or church. And that is going to be, I found it's going to be administered by the Alcohol and Beverage Control Group and the Department of Revenue, the same ones who place the liquor stores. So when you factor that in, there's even fewer spots these would be allowed. So they couldn't just go anywhere like a convenience store could in a C zone. They could look at that, but they would, if they were anywhere near a daycare or a school or something of that nature, they couldn't locate. And there's also some stipulations about how far they have to be from each other.
1,500 feet.
Yeah. So it's really going to limit the places they can go anyway.
Do funeral homes, are they in that list of daycares and stuff? No?
I don't think so.
Because
They weren't
sometimes,
mentioned.
sometimes they are.
The churches are, yeah,
It's daycares, churches, and schools is the three.
right.
In the legislation.
Okay.
And I think it's 1,000 feet from the front door of the business to the property line.
That's right.
But they
So-
also, the business can also give permission, that goes to 500 feet.
Yeah, you can ask
Church,
for a
daycare, or
variance.
school, yeah.
But is there anyone here that wanted to speak on that issue? We really just put it on the agenda to see if we could had some input, pro or con, and
I think you hit on most of it. It's 1,500 feet for a dispensary next to another dispensary. It's 1,000 feet, like you said, from a school, church, or a daycare. I own the True Life CBD.
would you come to the podium?
Sure.
And just state your name and address for the clerk.
Shannon Robinson, 135 Boone in Hernando. I own the CBD store in town. I'm a formulator. I've got about 1.5 years to have a PhD in internal natural medicine. So I don't believe in recreational. Absolutely not. Medical, there's a lot of proper ways to do it, how to medicate people, get them off of opioids. I mean, opioids have been the biggest disaster America's ever known. I've got people that come into the CBD store that gabapentin and other pain relievers won't help them. This does. Everybody, just to give you something which you guys may or may not know, every one of you, along everybody else, has an ECS, an endocannabinoid system. It's like a skeletal system, it's like a muscular system. The CBD and so forth and the other cannabinoids, there's 113 known right now. They do not do the healing. What they do is they tell those receptors to wake up and do their job. Kind of like when you have a headache. You take Tylenol because your body ran out of Tylenol? No. It's just a warning sign. So the same thing with different pain receptors. So what it's going to do is going to relieve a lot of people from buying stuff off the street. That stuff is laced with fentanyl. I mean, you cannot even remotely imagine what's out there right now. So again, I'm not for recreational by any means. I have seen this stuff in kids that have disorders, and I have friends. I have a hemp farm in Oregon, and I've seen kids come out there and take tablespoons of the oil that literally, when I say wore a helmet, it's not a joke. I mean, because they would hurt themselves. Couldn't walk, couldn't talk, couldn't go to school. Within 6 weeks, you would never know they had that problem. So there are a lot of, because I grew up in a household that this was taboo, you're going to hell. But after doing the research and having a lot of medical classes and almost finishing up a PhD, it is totally different than what we thought it was. People say, well, it's a gateway drug. No, that's what they told you it was. Because if you look now at alcohol, I mean, it causes heart failure, wrecks, and any officer will tell you, if you pulled anybody over that had been drinking, they never had more than 2 beers, and they're probably going to swing at you. If you pulled somebody over, which, if they're under the influence, even if it's medical marijuana, and they're under the influence and shouldn't be driving, it needs to be dealt with. But again, like you said, in the zones that they have, I've got one place. I'm the only person that has a place in the city of Hernando. You cannot put it anywhere. And when you look throughout the county of the 1,000-foot rule and see how many churches and daycares and stuff it's going to be so limited, you cannot do it. I mean, it's very, very tough finding this place. But just my 20,000-foot view.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Any other concerns or opinions from citizens? Anybody on this board have anything else they want to voice, or?
Because also just the, whatever business license fees or whatever that need to be, whatever if that fee structure needs to be in place and that it's not unreasonable per the, legislation, how it's written.
Yeah, and that's some.
$50,000 per license.
That's
so
for
not
the.
every time Dick and Harry's going to get into it. And you have to, I'm sorry, you also have to have 8 to 11 hours through the state to be even able to work in a dispensary. So the way they've got this laid out, this isn't going to be no frills everybody if you got 50 grand. I mean, they scrub you pretty good.
Right.
Yeah, and I think on the business license end, which we do, we can increase it to a reasonable amount if we think we're going to incur more expense regulating it. But that's something we would have to prove to raise that rate. Most of the business license numbers come to us in a spreadsheet from the state, and that's what we charge. They're usually $20 or $30 for a business license. So to charge more than that, we would have to justify it, is the way I've heard it said.
Mayor, can I add one other thing?
Yes, sir.
I've heard all night long, we're over budget in a lot of areas and trying to figure out some nuances or figure out how we're going to get this money. You can only get so much juice out of a grape. You squeeze a turnip, you're still not going to bleed. The taxes off of this coming in will be a lot like your lottery. You don't have a lot of money in it, but you're going to have a good reward. So the squeeze is worth the juice. So that's another positive impact that it will have.
Yeah, I'm not against it by any means, and certainly the laws are still in place that if you don't have one of these medical marijuana cards, you can't just be like, oh, well, it's all legal now, like I'm good, I'm gonna hang out at Conger Park or whatever and light it up. Like that's not what this is doing, or whatever. You can't, that's not what this is. So,
and of course, the law does state that you can't, if you're using the smoking type, you can't smoke it in public.
Correct.
But I do think we need to continue to have discussions on it because we have a timeline we're on.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to authorize our city attorney to take a look at the law and maybe come back with us at the next meeting with some type of recommendation about opting in, opting out, or whatever.
That's a great idea.
I think the opt-in is coming up in first part of
May 3rd,
Yeah.
We basically have one more meeting. And,
Okay.
I think there's a lot of questions. The state regs is not going to be coming out till right around that same time.
Yeah.
So.
May. Yeah, and I had emailed the mayor and a few aldermen as to whether or not we want to do research.
And
now there's been no answer.
yeah, and you and I can get together with Nick Manley, who has one point of view, and we can get together with Troy from Butler Snow, who's well-versed, and some other experts, and kind of come back with a good recommendation to the board.
I make that motion.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. And the motion passes. Number 26, the approval of cost share for Green Tea Road water line at a cost of $45,810. I remember back when they were getting ready to install their 6 or 8 inch line to the field house, we as a mayor and board saw an opportunity to upgrade that because we know in the future we're going to need 12-inch lines. So we had Joe Lauderdale get with their engineer and show them where we would like to have 12-inch lines for future growth, which is a good expenditure for us to just pay the upcharge. And so he did that, and they built it. And we had discussed that after it was built, if we could justify it, we would pay him for that system he put in at our request, basically. So Joe's here to talk about that just a little bit.
Okay, they have completed the line. I gave you kind of a estimate there, just kind of what they put in and the total value down there of what they installed. And then we talked about the difference there, as the mayor said, between an 8-inch line and us needing a 12-inch line. So you can see there on item number 3, if that 1,487 feet had been installed as an 8-inch line, the value would be $40,149. So the cost is more for the 12 would be $84,759. So you move down to the bottom of the page, and you have the difference there of the 8 and the 12, which is $44,610, and then of course you've got to increase a T and a valve and a reducer and caps. You got to increase some of that those items from an 8 to a 12, and so that's how we kind of arrived at a figure of $45,810.
Anybody have any questions or comments on that? I do have one comment. When they installed the line, and they've been alerted, they just haven't made the repairs, but I want to make sure that you and Lee stay on top of them. Right there on Green Tea Road, just west of Mackingville, they bored under a sidewalk, and the sidewalk has since cracked and collapsed, and the hillside there leading down into that subdivision needs sod put on it. So we just need to make sure that gets done.
Yep.
So the neighbors over there are pretty concerned about it.
Their tie-in point right there.
Yeah. Anybody have a motion on that item?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. That motion passes. Item 27, we had a lot of discussion at the last meeting about a proposed location for an animal shelter, and we decided not to put it at that location, but to go look for a more adequate one. Through teamwork, we have found one in the Nesbitt Industrial Park. A couple of aldermen have convinced the owner to sell us a lot in there that he wasn't necessarily going to sell, and it's a great lot. It backs up to other industrial buildings. There are no houses anywhere near it. We think this is a great place for the animal shelter. I know Susan has been out and seen the site, I believe, and I've been out there with the builder. We all know we hired the builder for the animal shelter. I wanted him to lay his eyes on it. He says it looks very buildable and easier to build on than where we were going to put it. He likes the site. It has sewer and water on it. The architect has said the building will fit on the site. So all those questions have been answered. I think, Bruce, could you talk about the price of it and your negotiations with them?
Yeah, the price of it, it's 1.05 acres, $120,000, and the other lots that they have sold in there, sold for $2.65 a square foot, which the cost of this lot is just right under that.
And if we vote to purchase this at the Planning Commission next week, it will be on the agenda to approve the subdivision of that lot. On our next meeting on the 19th will be for this board to approve the subdivision. The Mylars will be in place. They could probably be filed by the Friday following our meeting, and we would own, and in the meantime, we could get the contract done and everything, but we would be ready to start building. The builder, Brian Hall, is ready when we tell him that we own the lot to start ordering supplies and get started. He's itching to get going. Is there anybody that has any problems with the purchase of this lot, or would someone like to authorize us to purchase the lot and for me to sign the deed at closing?
An appraisal or anything like that?
I know, Stephen, you had talked about that with us.
Well, I think because you have comparables that one of the aldermen has investigated, and we know that it's coming in below the compared value of the like property in the same area. And it's a smaller piece of property, so it would probably be normally be. forward with it based on the investigation done by. It's an arm's length contract deal. Seller could sell it for more than what we sell in the city for.
Someone like to make a motion?
Do we need?
Is there anybody here that wants to speak for or against this? Or against it, maybe?
I think it's about time that we get a shelter.
Thank you.
We do too.
Okay.
We've been waiting a long time.
We're all ready.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to authorize our attorney to do a contract for the price of $120,000 for the lot that's described here on this legal description.
And authorize to close owner as quickly as possible.
Absolutely.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no, and that motion passes. Item 28, approve the utility adjustment docket.
Make a motion to approve utility docket.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. That motion passes.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor say aye. Aye. And we are now adjourned.